Alright guys, welcome back. We are going to be doing our very last set review video. Today, in this video, we're going to be going over Colorless, which is the artifacts, the lands, and the dungeons. The dungeons will be the last thing we do. We'll evaluate them, see potentially which is better for which scenario. I think that's going to be probably the longest part of the video, and we'll be doing that at the end, guys. So let's go ahead and jump right in with the first of the artifact cards. Making sure I have the settings ready to go. So the Bag of Holding, guys, this is a 1 mana artifact that whenever you discard a card, exile it from your graveyard, and then you can pay 2 to draw a card and discard, so then the discard goes into your Bag of Holding. So it's got a little bit of flavor there for you. And then you can sacrifice the Bag of Holding for 4 and return all of the exiled cards to your hand. So you can then get the cards out of your Bag of Holding. So what you want to be doing with this, if you choose to play it, would be like earlier in the game, you exile your 6-drop dragon, draw your land or whatever, right? And then exile your next dragon, play your 4-drop. And then you're like, okay, now I'm finally out of cards. Then you crack the bag and get basically free draws. So each time you do cast this or do the two mana spell, 2 mana ability, you're essentially drawing an extra card. So that's good value. You're not actually 1-for-1ing yourself, but it is a slower thing. And you do need to have a card that you're willing to just put on the back burner. And you also run the risk of them exiling it and killing them all, which could be killing your big bombs, so be a little careful about that. What do you think, Yanks?
Yeah, I mean, looting is always good and limited. 2 mana is a reasonable cost, especially since you can do it, end of turn at instant speed. Same for a sacrifice effect. This could be a, opponent's turn mana sink. But we're seeing a lot of playable enchantments and artifacts, so I'm starting to think more and more that we're going to see, that sort of artifact or enchantment hate run main deck, which does make this risky.
It does, but you can kind of tote that line of looting away extra lands and or looting away things that are castable later. So if it does happen, we don't necessarily know that that's going to be necessarily bad value, because maybe those draws were more important for you, which a lot of times looters do just fine. If you act like this is a looter with upside, maybe you're much happier, like Soothsayer from the last set. I had a lot of 7-win decks with double Soothsayer, and I was happy to loot a ton. So if you just use it like that, I mean, this isn't attached to a body, but it also has the upside of redrawing all your cards, so.
Yeah, after, I don't know what the number is, but after some number of loots, this is paid for itself anyway. By getting rid of cards you can't use or you need something else.
Or don't want, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then if you happen to get them back, if they had any good value, then you're in the money. But I still think this is like a 2-5. I'm probably not cutting it. I'm probably not picking it up very early, so it's likely that I just won't have them because they'll go earlier than I'm willing to pick them up. But I think I play it.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, I'm gonna let you take this one. Very tiny.
The Deck of Many Things, 5 mana legendary artifact. You can pay 2 and tap it to roll a d20.
Yes.
And subtract the number of cards in your hand. If the result is 0 or less, discard your hand. 1 to 9, you return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. 10 to 19, you draw 2 cards. And 20, put a creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And when that creature dies, its owner loses the game.
So the important thing is that the owner of the card loses the game. So this is very important that it's not the controller of the card, it's the owner. So you take their creature and they can't kill it.
Yeah, or you can kill it.
Yeah, or you kill it. Don't take your own creature unless you're going to die anyway. But take their creature and then you either blow it up yourself, sacrifice it, or attack them with it until they either die or block it and die anyway. So the 20 on this is pretty cool. If they have no creatures in their yard, then I don't know, sucks to suck. But that isn't likely to happen very often once you hit 5 mana plus pay for the ability and hit a 20.
Yeah, I think that's a cool effect, but also you have to have no cards in your hand for that to happen, because you're subtracting the number of cards.
No. I don't think that matters. The subtraction amount doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's completely separate. It's,
you're right.
It's an extra clause. So,
Yep.
So I think that every piece of the roll is good. Now, my question to you is when do we start gambling and rolling the dice? When are we willing to discard our cards for the chance of getting one of the other 3 options that are all very good? Because if you have 3 cards, if you roll a 3, you could discard them all. So at what point is it no longer worth the risk of losing your hand to return a random card back? I guess if you have 3 cards, you only lose 2 if you think of it that way. But
yeah, I think it's going to depend on what's in your hand, right? If you just don't actually care about the cards, then whatever.
I'm a bit of a gambler. I would probably still be rolling at 5, like, pretty consistently. So I think my number is higher than most people's number. I like this card. It's expensive, but it's really good value over a long period of time. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, I agree.
The activation's cheap. It's a bit expensive, but if it costs 2 but 5 to activate, I'd be way less on it, right? Because yeah, 5 is a lot for this kind of thing that does nothing when you put it into play, but you can pretty consistently thereafter cast it every time if you want, and then just play things off curve a little bit, and you're going to get a ton of value that way. Whereas if it was reversed, 2 and then 5 to activate, you're basically committing your turn to do the flip to get your card. So I like that. And also later in the game, you're getting a random card in your graveyard. So those are probably going to be your cheaper things that you played earlier in the game anyway. So you're likely to be able to play 2 plus play whatever that was as well.
Yeah. I guess the other part that matters, right, is what is in your graveyard.
Yeah.
That you're getting back, but really, almost anything you're pretty happy with.
Yeah, any creature, a 2/2, whatever, a small removal spell. It's pretty great. That said, it still costs 5. I guess we can't rate it too highly. What do you like it at?
I think it's a 4.
Okay, good. I had it at a 4 too. I was worried I was a little too high on it because of the die rolling.
No, I think it's very good. Although I'm still trying to research that first rule because I'm curious. But we can move on.
I'm pretty sure it wouldn't count against you. I like it, but I also want to roll a lot of dice. All right, so we got a dungeon map. So this is just a mana rock. Adds colorless. You can pay 3 to venture, activate as a sorcery. So it's kind of interesting. It's a mana rock that does something. Usually I'm not a huge fan of the mana rocks because they're good to ramp you, they're good to fix, and then once you get the land, then they are no longer doing you any good. So it's a card disadvantage. But this one actually ventures, and ventures add up to 2 card advantage, so it more than makes up for itself over a long game, and ramps you when you need it. It does provide colorless, so if you have a very mana greedy deck, it's not something you're going to be actively looking for, but if you have venture payoffs, it's definitely going to be very good. And a lot of your other like venture cards too have mana sinks associated with them because you can use it for that too. What do you like this at, Yanks?
I have this kind of as filler. It's just a 2 for me.
Yeah. I have it
doesn't fix you.
A 1/5 or a 2, depending if you want the venture.
Yeah, if you start having a lot of things that care about ventures or have things that impact like double venture abilities, stuff like that, it can be much better than that. But I think in general, that's what you're looking at.
When Eye of Vecna enters the battlefield, draw a card and lose 2 life, so it replaces itself. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2. If you do, draw and lose 2, so you can do it over and over again. You're really not going to start getting your value for this card until you've done it for the 3rd time, till you draw a 3rd card, I think. But then at that point, you've paid 6 life. And that is not typically the business I want to be in. And it's going to be, even if there's a percentage of the games where you're ahead, you're at 20 life, you can afford to pay a couple extra life, but there's going to be a lot of the games where it's more even and or you're behind, and this is just really poopy. I don't want to pay that much mana for my cards personally.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this card
Or
at
that
all.
much life, I mean.
No, you know, drawing a card and losing a couple life is a fine effect, but not when it's the only thing it does.
Yep. And it's only good when you've done it multiple times, putting you at like a, you know, in the danger zone for sure. Seems like some sort of constructed card. Now, if you've got a ton of like, if this is in your green deck and you've got like 4 of the good on their own life gain cards, sure, maybe you can consider playing this if you think you can consistently make up for 6 life. And then you have no other card draw. I could see running it in that, but nothing else.
So just to take us back to the book, the Deck of Many Things, looking this up, according to Matt Tabak, the rules manager, the results table is after you subtract the number of cards in your hand. So you can only get a 20 if you have no cards in your hand.
Really?
Yep, that was a question that he was asked on Twitter. The result in the table is after modifications, after subtracting the number of cards.
That's interesting because I've been in multiple streams where they've talked about that card and everybody agreed that it was so you would discard before if you missed before the results table kind of thing. So you're right in that it resolves first, but everybody was in agreement that then the negative would not apply to the base roll. That is interesting.
Yeah, after you said that and then I looked at the card again, I would have thought that was the case, but
okay, well, the entire community thinks that's the case, which is interesting. Which I actually think I almost like, it sucks more for the person playing the card, but I actually like it better because it's more flavorful for D&D. I don't think that you should apply a negative and not have it actually matter for the thing. So that actually makes me like the card more.
Yeah.
In my heart. And it also does make it less worth it to risk your cards.
Agreed. But yeah, that was just a
interesting.
A specific question asked to Matt Tabak when the mechanics article came out, and that was his response.
That will be very interesting when people start to realize that.
Yeah.
Climb. Okay, so 50 feet of rope for 1 mana. Climb over, so you can target wall can't block because you climb over it. You can tie up. Target creature doesn't tap it, but it doesn't untap, so you can let them hit you once, and then after that you can redo it every turn because it's already tapped, which is nice. Or you can venture into a dungeon, activate as a sorcery. This is fine.
Yeah, seems pretty expensive, but I do like the freeze ability on the tie-up portion. So
we've seen other ones that cost like 4 to tap, and they were playable. This is 3 to tap, but it has to already be tapped. Yeah. And it also makes it so it doesn't untap on their next untap step, so it's a little bit of like a plus minus there. The wall is nothing.
Yeah, that's flavor.
The Venture is nice mana sink late game too. Yeah, I like this card well enough. It's not going to make a huge impact, but if you have room, I could see playing this over like a borderline playable. Like I'm playing this over a Plummet. Things that we said, yeah, if it's a 23rd card, fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that the last 2 abilities really don't synergize well together because you can't, a lot of times you're going to want to use tie up after their turn, like once they've tapped something. But you can't then decide change your mind and venture, like because it's sorcery only. So I think the timing on that can be pretty awkward.
Well, I think it's more. I look at it more like I would play the 4 mana tap down to keep it locked down, and then sometimes they don't have a creature, so you're not wasting it. You still get to recoup some of your card value as well. We do view those kinds of things a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's definitely better that you have the option than not, but I don't know, it feels a little awkward to me.
I'm still playing it not very highly. It's like a 2.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's a 2.
We have a Great Axe, guys. I could have swore I already filled these in, but apparently I didn't. All right, it's a 1 mana equipment, +4/+0 with a 5 equip cost. Oof. That's very expensive. But +4 plus O is a lot. I'm not casting it unless I have like the synergies that make it cheaper and or a lot of evasive creatures that aren't trading to where I don't have to like equip it often. But if you put this on a 2/2 flyer, you're going to get some good beats. But I mean, I'm not playing this realistically unless I'm in that specific deck with payoffs for it.
Yeah, if I've got the Boros Legendary guy, then I start considering playing this card, but I still probably
or the class card,
or the class card.
Yeah, things like that.
Then I'll start considering playing this card, but I'm still probably going to be able to find better equipment than this to play.
Yeah, and
that aren't awful if I don't draw those.
The other thing too is, again, I don't want them on a creature that's going to trade. I want it on a creature that's evasive, that's going to get the beats down, so a flyer. So it has to be a very specific set of things. I need the payoffs, the cheaper things, and evasive creatures to make it worth equipping if I don't have them. So I'm just going to put it at a 1, but I'm sure you'll see it floating around from time to time. The Hand of Vecna at the beginning of your combat. Equip creature or a creature you control named Vecna gets +X/+X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Okay. You can equip, pay 1 life for each card in your hand, or you can equip for 2. Got a reasonably cheap cost, but the XX could be great or the XX could be awful.
Yeah, this just seems really inconsistent. I'm not particularly thrilled with this card.
No, you would need some really good cheap removal or cheap card draw to be consistently having like 4 to 5 cards in your hand to make me willing to play this. I think it's just a 1.
Yeah, and the other just weird thing about it, right, is that these Vecna cards are part of that Book of Vile Darkness. You have to exile the book and the eye and the Hand of Vecna to create Vecna, but the only way to get Vecna out is to have exiled this already. So that Vecna part doesn't even really do anything.
So it's just a constructed card?
Yeah.
Unless you draw 2 of these. Ow!
Yeah.
Get my stupid hamster. Alright.
It is nice to be able to equip for life can be relevant at some point, which is a nice little bonus there.
Iron Golem, 4 mana, 5/3 with Vigilance. Attacks or blocks each combat if able. It's a Juggernaut with Vigilance.
Yes. Yeah.
Juggernaut is like fine playable in most things. I mean, not good, but you can kill some fools with a combat trick and a removal spell and a Juggernaut.
Yeah, this card is fine.
2/5.
Yeah, it's a little better than 4.
All right, Leather Armor. Equipped creature gets +0/+1 and has Ward 1. Activate, equip 0. Activate only once per turn. I mean, it's not really impactful enough for me to be excited about it. Where I would maybe be willing to play this is if sideboard against my opponent that shows like 3 6 mana removal spells and creatures that get bonuses and or the multicolor card Lord that gets +2/+0 for each equipment on it. So you're moving this around for free does make things much easier.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think I will play this card at all if I don't have Brunner in the deck.
And even if you do, I'm hoping there's better.
Exactly. But yeah, I can definitely see it out of the sideboard for the Ward.
Mimic, guys. Flavor. I like it. It's a 2 mana Mimic. Add 1 mana of any color, which is kind of nice. It's a cheap rock, but sacrifices, so you're losing the card. It becomes a shapeshifter artifact creature with base power toughness 3/3 until end of turn. So you have to keep dumping 2 mana in this to make it into a creature. So it's like a 4 mana 3/3 that makes you pay a lot. This card sucks.
Yeah, just the only note I have is that this is a non-token treasure. So it actually does work for all the cards that we've seen for paying mana that are from treasures.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But it's still
no,
sacked, so it's only going to be one trigger.
Yeah, it's not good.
I'd rather play a bad spell that makes a treasure.
Exactly. Yep.
You'd probably get more value out of the bad side of that card than you're going to get for just having this.
Yeah. No,
I'm a little sad. Mimics are like pretty sweet in multiple, not only in D&D, but like in Final Fantasy you see them. So I wish that this was like more playable. Spare Dagger. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. Whenever this creature attacks, you may sacrifice Spare Dagger. When you do, this creature deals 1 damage to any target. Low impact. It's kind of like a counterpart to the ward one. I think it's too low impact for me to be excited about.
Yeah, I think this is a little better than the ward one, but again,
I agree, actually.
I'm trying not to play this.
Someone said Death Touch. Well, the thing is, it only works once. So that kind of works, but...
It's cute. It's cute.
Spike Trap. Roll dice. Yes. All right. It's a 1 mana flashing artifact. Sacrifice it. Choose target creature. 1 through 9, it deals 5 damage. 10 through 20, 5 damage and a treasure token. This is another great example of like, it's not pass-fail. It's pass-plus. And that's fine. We've seen a lot of these kinds of artifacts that for 5 mana you sack neg 5, something like that, and they were always playable, especially if you had any synergies with artifacts. You can flash, you're splitting the mana cost of 6 for the 5 damage, so it's not a great rate, but again, it's a little bit more flexible. You have a chance to make a treasure token. If you're light on removal, this will see play, but I'm not happy ever to have it, so I think it's a 2.
Yeah, agreed. Removal when you absolutely need it, but try to do better.
Treasure Chest. Pay 3 mana, sacrifice it for 4. If you roll a 1, you get trapped. Lose 3 life. So this basically reads, if you, natural 1, which is awful in D&D, you fall, you go to stab somebody with your dagger, you fall down, trip over a rock, and then accidentally land and stab yourself in the eye. Basically reads, pay 7, discard a card, lose 3 life.
Yep.
Which is awful, but very fitting for a natural 1. You can pay, it's a 2 through 9, to create 5 treasure tokens. Fine in the right deck. Helpful. 5 treasure tokens for 7 mana is not great, but if I've got big treasure payoffs, it's not like it is not an awful thing to get. Still not happy. 10 through 19, you gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. Now I'm happy. 7 mana is still an awful lot, but we've paid 6 before to draw 3 kind of stuff. That's moderately fine and limited. And then for a natural 20, search your library for a card. If it's an artifact card, put it out into the battlefield. Otherwise, put that card into your hand and shuffle. I mean, unless my card that I'm getting is like something massive, some big rare bomb, I would much rather draw 3 cards.
Yeah, I think this card is just awful. I think this card has some potential instructed to do some things, but limited. I'm only really happy with one of the outcomes, and I'm only moderately happy at that.
I agree with this statement. I feel like if I'm in the black-red treasure deck, I will play this. Literally no other deck. Because then it's like moderately happy and okay, fine for most of the rolls, for 90% of the rolls, which, I'm okay with. Probably not running it. It would be a 23rd playable card in one deck.
Yeah, if I'm spending 7 mana, I want well more than a 50% chance, or even a 90% chance that I'm moderately happy.
You have high standards. At this point, I'm old. I've lowered my standards. I mean, it's definitely a 1, guys, but
yeah,
I'm definitely going to roll this dice. at some point in the next 4 months. Let's be honest.
That's fair.
My Magic standards are a lot like my standards in men. They're really not that high. I am sad. Mimic, treasure chest. I feel like these are iconic D&D things that should have been at least playable. All right, guys. We have lands and dungeons left, and then that is it. Then Boo and I are going to edit the videos and go to sleep. So let's get this done. Cave of the Frost Dragon. Our first land. If you control more lands, if you control 2 or more lands, it enters the battlefield tapped. So you want to play it early. Otherwise, it's a tapped land. Taps for planes, and you can pay 5 to become a 3/4 white dragon creature with flying until end of turn. Okay, I like man lands in limited. They're basically a free card, right? It's a land when you need it early, and then it's a creature when you don't have cards left. Seems great.
Yeah, creature lands are good. I mean, the first clause here, there's a cycle of these monocolor cycle. The first clause is similar to the Scars of Mirrodin and Kaladesh fast lands.
Yes. And they're not scary and limited.
Yeah.
1 tapped land for such a big bonus is fine with me.
Yeah. So, I'm going to generally be happy with any man land. 5 mana for a 3/4 flyer is pretty good. It's a good mana sink. It's a relevant body. I'm happy with this card.
Yeah, the fact that you get to play it, that creature, I know it's a mana sink that's pretty expensive, but it's free because it's a land for all of the time you have other things to do. So I like that. I might be a little too high on these, but yeah, I think it's like a 3 or 3/5.
Yeah, I think it's I have it at a 3. It is pretty expensive, and it's a tapped monocolor land, which is not helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be tapped a fair amount of the times, and the times it will, you could possibly play around it. So, like, the worst case scenario is you need to hit your, 5th land, and that's the land you draw. But a lot of times it's in your opening hand, or a lot of times, you draw it on 3, but you have 1 more, but you have a 3-drop, but not a 4-drop, so you can kind of, like, finagle it a little bit, but it won't always be the worst case scenario. Don't run a ton of them.
Yeah.
Just like in the last couple of sets, use your tapped lands sparingly.
Luckily, that will be forced on you since they're rare.
That's true. And there's no other like land cycles. If you have more lands, blah, 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 4 mana until end of turn, it becomes a 3/2 red dragon creature. Token that is tapped. Oh, when it attacks, create a 1/1. So I like this one a little less though, because it doesn't like live. The 3/4 flyer likely just lives and becomes a thing that can kill them forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I agree the white one's better. There are goblin synergies in red, which helps. This a little bit, and if you activate this and trade it off and leave back a 1/1, you've traded a land for one of their cards. That's fine, but I agree. I do think the white one is better.
Yeah, I'm in the 3 boat for this.
Yeah, I think most likely, unless some of these are really terrible, they're probably all going to be around the same, or really great, they're going to be all in that same range.
Yeah. So 3 for that one. We have Dungeon Descent. Enters battlefield tap, creates colorless, pay 4, tap an untapped legendary creature you control, and you can venture. That's pretty specific. And it's, restrictive mana cost, and it's guaranteed to be tapped. I'm not in love with this. You have to tap a creature that's a legendary, so it's probably a good creature to venture, which is a pretty minimal bonus unless you've done it a lot, which means you're probably not bashing them with something relevant. I think it's just a 1.
Yeah, this is just a 1. You should never be playing this.
All right, Evolving Wilds, always great. Thins, fixes, does everything I want a land to do. Lets you have very greedy keeps as well, which is nice.
Yeah, it's interesting in this set because there are no dual lands in this set, but there's a lot of treasure.
Yeah.
So I still think Evolving Wilds is kind of where it always is. It's in that like 2-5 range.
Yeah, it's a 2-5 or a 3, depending on how multicolor the decks want to be. If most of them are just 2s, then it's probably like a 2-5. If we find that the multicolor cards are powerful enough to want to splash, which I actually think this is the least splashable multicolor cards I've seen in a set because they are so specific on what they do. Most of them are like vanilla unless you're in a specific deck, which means it's not in a different color that you're not playing, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So a lot of times the multicolor, it's like, well, I'm one of these, I'll just splash the second color. Most of them are only good in their specific colors because that's where the synergy is. And I feel like these are almost like the weaker multicolor cards. Unless you're playing like Kingpin, I'll splash that thing.
Sure, yeah.
All right, Hall of the Giant Storm something something. Same rules apply. 6 mana becomes a 7/7 beater. 6 mana is a lot, but a 7/7 is also a lot, and it's free.
Yep, with Ward 3, so it's harder for you to spend 6 to activate this and then to just kill it.
Yeah.
Yep, I think it's in the same boat as the other ones.
Do you like it closer to the Bugbear or the Frost Dragon?
I like it closer to the Frost Dragon, partly because blue doesn't mind the high mana cost as much because you're trying to get in the late game anyway.
I agree. I think this is like a 3.25. Not that I'm going to rate it that, but I think that's the ranking order, right? I think it's red, blue, white for me so far. I'm just going to leave it at a 3 personally. Hive of the Eye Tyrant. Same, whatever. 4 mana. It becomes a 3/3 black beholder with menace. When this creature attacks, exile target card from defending player's graveyard. Okay, well, that's not super duper relevant, but we saw some graveyard synergies. There's like the green card that comes back at uncommon. Could be relevant.
Yeah. Again, it's in the 3 range. I think this is kind of close to the red one for me.
I agree.
A little bit better body, but doesn't leave anything behind.
I like this at a 3 as well. Lair of the Hydra. Same stuff. X and green, and it makes an XX. Okay. So this one scales, which is kind of cool. So anytime you don't have anything to do with your mana, you just scale it up. So early, it's not good, but late, it's great. You know?
Yeah, I think just the flexibility on this makes this the best of him.
Yeah, you can actually activate them earlier, whereas like the dragon and the giant, you can't. So if you don't have anything to do, or if you're really far ahead, it might just be worth it to just keep the pressure on.
Yeah, you can activate them early. You can activate this for less later and also cast a spell.
I still like the white better.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think they're all fairly close. I have this one a little bit ahead of the white, but it's definitely close.
Yeah, I think this is my second highest. Temple of the Dragon Queen. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a dragon card from your hand. Temple of the Dragon Queen enters the battlefield tapped unless you reveal the dragon. Okay, so it seems very specific. As Temple of the Dragon Queen enters the battlefield, choose a color, add a mana. What? Okay.
So just like a better version of a slightly better version of the ones we've seen where you know, the 5-color fixers that you pay 1 when they enter. Because this one you don't pay 1 and it can enter untapped.
Yes.
But you have to choose the color. You know, at the time as opposed to getting to choose it later.
Yeah, so it makes like multiple splashes more awkward than in the last set, but
yep.
And also it comes into play tapped versus like having to pay an extra land to do it. That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably when you factor it all on there, it probably comes out to about the same as those cards do.
To me, this just feels like an Evolving Wilds.
Yeah.
It literally does the exact, like, I'm probably not going to want to show them my dragon anyway.
Yeah, it's the same as Evolving Wilds, except if you need it to, there are times it can be untapped.
Yes.
But it doesn't thin your deck.
Fringe times, but times nonetheless, that's true. So you think this is the same as an Evolving... Yeah, I think it's the same as Evolving Wilds, I guess.
Yeah.
I could have swore I added these. These are ones that were not there before. All right. Treasure Vault, last card for the lands, guys. Colorless land, XX, sacrifice it, create X treasure tokens. Now this could be worth playing in that deck. Because it doesn't like prevent you, you know, it's free. It's a land if you don't have a mana intensive color deck. And then later it just activates all of your bonuses that you get in the treasure deck.
Yeah, I think as long as you're not splashing, you can play this card because, like you said, it's free. But I'm not taking this early or looking for it.
So here's the thing: it is free, and as long as you're not splashing. But I still don't even think I play it in other decks because it's not worth the mana color risk, even in 2-drops, unless there's some sort of payoff. Because by the time you want to sack this, you're already at 6 mana, right?
Yeah, that's probably true.
If you're sacking it for 1, you could just leave it as a land. I'd rather have it be a color source that I could possibly need.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think you're right on that.
So it's literally just a 1 deck pony. So it's like a 1 or a 3.
Yep. I agree with that.
You know, you get to play it for free because it's, you know, a land. So then at 6 mana, 7 mana, you crack it, and then every draw you get that has any token synergy is just golden. This fuels that 1/2 with first strike where you can sacrifice, give it +2/+0. It makes cards like that have some, you can retain them easier, which I like a bunch.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is looking for that black-red deck or, you know, potentially in it. Yeah, but really just that black-red deck.
All right, we are almost there, team. Almost. 3 more cards. This is going to be probably the longest 3 cards of the entire set because I think there's going to be a lot to evaluate with them. I think we're also going to be wanting to jump back and forth and compare these more than we were to others and kind of talking a little bit about which deck archetype the particular dungeon goes with. Okay, so the first one is the Mad Mage. This is the longest one of the bunch. Probably the longest to evaluate. So let's just run through it real quick. You can gain a life, and then you can scry, and then you can create a treasure, or target creature can't attack until your next turn. So you kind of, if you're behind, you can slow the brakes, you can ramp if you need it, you can fix if you need it. Those are your 2 options. So based on board state, it's got some flexibility. And then you can scry 2. Guaranteed. And this one, unlike some of the other ones, you can actually jump from side to side of the card. Some of the other dungeons, once you pick a side, you kind of get stuck there. So keep that in mind. This one, you don't need to be quite as choosy because it doesn't affect your future decisions, but the other ones do. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them. That seems great. So the 5th adventure is where we start to see some big value.
Yep.
Create 2 black skeletons. A lot of skeleton synergy in this set, so that could definitely be a good outcome as well. Provides jumpers, provides aggression, and then scry 3. And then the final one is draw 3 cards and reveal them. You may cast one of them without paying its mana cost. Great. This seems awesome. Huge payoffs as well.
Yeah, and I like how the last 2 abilities synergize if you can do them back-to-back turns or the same turn.
And you get to keep the cards.
Draw 3.
Draw 3 cards and reveal them. So you still get the other 2 in your hand?
Yep.
It's not like exile, reveal them, play 1. It's draw 3, get a free one. That's busted. I'm down.
Yeah. And it requires 7 ventures, so it better be something good at that point.
Yeah, but some of the adventures were like not super hard to get, but this is great. So I'm not going to rate any of these really until we kind of like take a look at all of them and compare them, because we rated the venture cards kind of separately as like a bonus and what you get, you know, adds up over time, but we really don't know which dungeon is better. So I think most of them are most cards are rated on their own and their power level. The power level of these dungeons are kind of comparative to each other. Now I know they do have like specific synergies, but I think they're a little bit more intertwined. So let's go ahead and go to the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and you don't, rating them doesn't matter so much because you don't ever have to choose between them until you're in the game state. Like, you don't have to draft them outside the game. You always have access to all three of them at the start. So they're always going to be dependent on what the board state is when you get that first picture.
That's true. Like, the ratings are going to be like, this is the one for this deck, this is the one for this deck kind of thing, less than a 1 to 5 scale. Because there aren't going to be any that are just unplayable. If you guys don't know exactly how dungeons work, we actually recorded the introduction to the Forgotten Realms MTG set. So check that video out on YouTube. It goes over all of the mechanics that are new, all of the ones that are returning, and how they work, and all of the ins and outs of it. All right, Cave Entrance, scry 1. Then you can create a goblin or create a treasure. Those two kind of go in the same deck sometimes, which is kind of nice. Gives you the flexibility of what you need at the moment. Store and put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. I like that that one's in the middle, so it can go into either, because what if they kill your creature? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then target creature gets -4, -0 until end of turn, and then you can draw a card. So it's the faster dungeon, less payoffs overall, but I think it can be very good in an aggressive deck.
You get an aggressive deck, or the deck that has complete the dungeon rewards versus the last one, because you'll finish it faster.
Which there actually wasn't as many as I thought there was going to be. In white,
No.
When we saw the one that was like first strike or double strike or whatever, I was like, oh, there's probably going to be a bunch, but there really wasn't. All right, each player loses a life, so both players. Each player loses 2 life unless they discard a card. Each player loses 2 life unless they sacrifice an artifact, a creature, and a land. Whew. All of these are each player. Create a 4/4 Black God Horror with Death Touch. Or you can bypass the middle two, which, are kind of... I know, I'm getting there, guys. So if you go left, you have to do both. If you go right, you have to only do the one. So like, I was reading what left meant and what right meant. Relax, we got a plan. Oh, you're saying or. I see what you're saying. Or a land. I thought you guys were saying or as in read the other side of the card. I was like, calm down. Okay, that does make sense. The other side is all of those things. That's what I was thinking. Discard a card.
But the other side is only you, not each player.
Yes. So I saw this, someone was talking about it before, and I saw that it was discard all of those things. So when I started reading the left side, I thought that that's where I was. So I just kind of filled it in. So you discard a card, sacrifice an artifact, a creature, and a land. So ideally, you're probably not adventuring very much without a creature on the board. So this is probably like discard a card, a creature, and a land. You could probably play around the artifact part.
Yeah, or vice versa. You could play around the creature part with some of those artifacts we saw that let you venture. Yeah,
but if you're paying for the artifact, paying for the venture, paying for another venture, you're probably dead.
Yeah, I'm thinking more along the lines of maybe you had a creature ventured and then the board state played out and you trade it off and you just don't have a creature anymore.
Possibly, yes.
And you can still venture because you have that artifact.
And then the payoff is just a 4/4?
Yeah. I'm finding it hard in my mind to picture why I would ever want to use this dungeon in Limited.
I could see doing the dungeon, but I can't see taking the right side. Like, I don't ever want a 4/4 that badly. If you're ahead, the left side is fine. You know what I mean? Kind of like the, I mean, it's not fine, but like, kind of like the Arrogant Poet. Pay 2 to make it flying, make them take 2. Like, if you're ahead, if you're gaining life, if you're doing a number, if you're creating tokens, like the left side could be fine. You could get more value from it than your opponent. So it's kind of like, giving yourself a scratch, but stabbing them kind of thing. Not every deck, but I mean, I could definitely see that being a thing sometimes.
Yeah, I guess there are board states, where both players doing something is something negative is beneficial to you because you're ahead. That is true.
Yeah, and again, not always, but like, I don't know, maybe your opponent's at like 5 or something, right? Or they only have 1 creature, but you have 2. I'm fine with this. That said, it's still my least favorite of the bunch.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what card it is. It does play into the
5/5. It's black 5/5 for 3. Is that the dungeon for it? Yeah. It's the first card in black.
Yeah. But that's nothing, so that's not going to come up often.
So you might want to complete this so you can have a 5/5. That's true, but I feel like by the time you do that, a 5/5 isn't all that special.
No, it's more the ability, right? Whenever it attacks, you get a zombie unless they sacrifice a creature. So if you've already forced them to sacrifice things from the left side of that dungeon, it helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I my guess is that one's the one that's going to be used the least. But it's it's such a completely brand new mechanic. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I definitely think that is the least used one, and it's only going to be used when you're massively ahead and they're almost dead.
Yeah.
The other one is all good things, but it's so much less impactful. Like the storeroom and the fungal cavern are not exciting. I like, exile the top card of your library and play them. So I feel like I'm always going to be in this dungeon unless I have cards that benefit completing dungeons. And if that's the case, I'm taking one of the other 2. That's 4. The other one is also 4. Yeah, so I'm almost always taking the Lost Mine with dungeon completion bonuses.
Yeah, I think the other time I take Lost Mine is if I just don't have a lot of ventures. So, like, if I only have a few in the deck, like, I'm happier to get, like, scry 1, make a token, rather than gain 1, scry 1. Like, if I only think I can get a couple in.
That's true.
If I can't reliably get to, like, that 5th venture, the first one's kind of meh.
So the first one is going to be high adventure decks, higher payoffs. Middle one is lower adventure decks, adventure completion payoffs, and the right one is in the lead reach, is kind of like what we think about these cards.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to sum them up.
So I won't rate them 1 to 5. I will give like bullet points of like when each one is kind of used in the articles.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Seems reasonable. I kind of like the dungeon mechanic. I think you were saying you weren't a huge fan of it, but
I absolutely hate it.
I want to roll dice and go into dungeons.
I'm way more okay with the dice rolling than I am with dungeons. I want the phrase command zone taking it far away from competitive Magic.
I don't even see it like a command zone. I feel like it's like an emblem. Like a planeswalker emblem.
It is. Well, technically that's where they go to. They go into the command zone as well.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem as scary.
But we hate Planeswalkers Unlimited.
I haven't lately. Most of them have sucked.
It's actually more like my bigger problem with this is one of the best things about Limited is games are always different. So giving you 3 cards you always have access to in every single game is just homogenizing gameplay. It's one of the same issues I had with Companions.
But that's not necessarily true, because Companions always kind of did the same thing, whereas here you can pick 3 different options and then you can go down different paths. And it changes how you use your creatures, which is variance. There's 2 sides of that coin.
I guess I think you're going to find yourself using, like, in your deck, you're going to end up using them pretty much the same way most of the time. Each deck will use them differently, but it will make the games play out more similar, like within your draft run.
I mean, but you liked Learn though, and Learn was a very similar idea. Like, you have 5 Learn spells. you got the same 5 lessons and you pretty much got them in the same order. It's going to be like the same thing for these ventures, just on a smaller impact scale.
Except every draft I would have access to vastly different ones. The fact that you always have access to the same 3 is what I don't like about this.
So if you drafted these, you'd be okay with it?
I'd be more okay with it. I'd still have an issue with the whole command zone can't interact with them thing, but I'd be more okay with it.
Well, he is a blue player, guys, and he hates fun, so none of this is news. I want to get into the dungeon, so let's do it. I can't wait to see on Arena where it shows up. Is it going to be like on the right-hand side of the screen, kind of like where Ascend was? Or is the command zone going to be in the bottom right of your hand, but then you can't really see where the tracker is real well? It's going to be interesting to see that.
That will be interesting. Yeah, they're super flavorful and they make sense in the set. And just looking at them, nothing here is that super impactful unless you've put in a whole ton of work. So, I think that's good.
And you hate fun.
No, I hate other people having fun. I want to have fun, all the fun. It's a zero-sum game.
That's true. You don't want anyone else to have any fun.
I have all the fun.
I was mistaken. I was mistaken. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. Please leave us a comment. Let me know what you thought of the cards. What do you think of dungeons? Don't forget to like it or follow or subscribe or whatever it is that you YouTube-y people do. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys. I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.